histamine intolerance can be one of the #1 underlying causes and results of our eczema, and also a lot of associated symptoms with our TSW, our topical steroid withdrawal, and many other skin inflammatory conditions. If you have that itching and you can't go to sleep and it is plaguing you morning, noon and night, then you really need to look at your histamine levels. Now, you might not have long-term histamine intolerance, you might just have short-term histamine intolerance, but if it's associated with that itching and you're trying to overcome it, then you really need to look at your histamine intake and how you can bring that histamine level down so that you can then begin to repair and heal your skin. What is up, you guys? Welcome back to my channel. My name is Leila, and on this channel I talk everything eczema, TSW, skin inflammation, atopic dermatitis, you name it. This is the channel to be watching if you want to heal your skin completely naturally from the inside out. Since birth, I was on steroids and I struggled with lifelong eczema to the point whereby I became addicted to steroids and I went into withdrawal. I've now fully recovered and I have 2 years completely free from steroids. And I share with you on my channel how I overcame not only my TSW but my lifelong eczema with you completely naturally. So stay tuned. So what is histamine intolerance and how can we overcome it, and how is that related to your skin condition? If you're constantly struggling and battling with the itch, be it daytime or nighttime, then you probably have some form of histamine intolerance, and you just need to take the time to lower your histamine levels and get rid of that itching and really try and tackle it head on. If you are somebody who's got some underlying skin issues and you're having to take antihistamines every single night or at least 3 times a week, then you probably have a high histamine level. You might not just be a histamine intolerant individual all round, but you might have histamine issues, or you might go through different histamine cycles in the year. In order to overcome that itching, you need to consider adapting your diet to a low histamine diet. Now, you might not be histamine intolerant such as I am, which is kind of like a constant, and I'm constantly monitoring my histamine issues. It might just be that during the duration of your TSW, your histamine levels have spiked and you need to get that under control in order to overcome that itch process. Many symptoms of histamine intolerance can include headaches and migraines, nasal congestion, sinusitis, runny nose, hives, intense itching, vomiting, nausea, and digestive issues. Now, you guys can go ahead and do this test by yourself at home and just literally write down a food journal what you're eating and see how you respond a few hours or the next day. Say, for example, in the evening you decide to have spaghetti bolognese or something, and then the next day you realize, oh, I've got a bit of a headache, or, you know, I'm actually super itchy in the night, or in actual fact, I've got quite a runny nose. And this is what happened to myself. I would find that from eating something like tomato sauce, which is a very, very high histamine, because not only is it preserved product, but it's also the tomatoes itself as well. That's a super triple high histamine threat, we call it. And I would eat that sauce in the evening, and then literally by 2 o'clock in the morning, I would be wake up very nasally, very runny but blocked. I'd have this congestion, and this would be the signs to me having a histamine flare, as it were. Now, I know you guys are probably thinking, well, Leila, I can tell you've got like a bit of a deviated septum, which is true, I do, but it has nothing to do with the way in which my actual breathing and my nasal congestion actually comes about. That really does come about from histamine intolerance. I have had this deviated septum for a very, very long time, and I've not really ever done much about it, but I've proven to myself that when I remove these high histamine food types, I tend to breathe completely perfectly. So in this video today, I'm going to give you 12 food types that you need to avoid that are very high in histamine, and if you avoid these foods, you can bring your histamine levels down, overcome a lot of that itching, and really be able to sleep right through the night, and at the same time alleviate a lot of that inflammation that you're struggling with. Bone broth, a lot of probiotics, and kombucha are really high in histamine because they're fermented foods, especially the bone broth and the kombucha. You really want to get rid of all those. And when it comes to probiotics, you have to really find one that's low in histamine, because you all think that our skin intolerance or our skin issues are really related to our gut and trying to heal our gut. And you guys are doing the best you can in order to navigate all of this. And it's really difficult when you haven't got the backup of medical practitioners. So number 2, you guys, is leftovers. If you have and prepare a meal that evening or that day, and then you keep it in your fridge for maybe 2 to 3 days, then the histamine level will literally triple in that time as well. If you would prefer, go ahead and freeze it, because if you freeze the food and then defrost it, then the histamine levels haven't reproduced. But I'm afraid refrigerating for, more than 3 days is really risking things. Number 3, you guys, is alcohol. Alcohol is really high in histamine, and then when you add sugar drinks to it as well, it triples in histamine strength. So bear in mind, if you're having a drink, then do consider the histamine levels. Wine, beer, beer has gluten in it anyway, so that's kind of out of the question, but wine is very high in histamine. Champagnes, Prosecco's, also very, very high in histamines. All that mixture of grapes is just like triple threat histamine level. But at the same time, if you have things like gin and vodka, they're slightly better if you're having it with just, say, soda water and a slice of lime. But if you're mixing it with sort of high sugar sodas, then yeah, it's going to accumulate in that histamine level. So be very careful. Sugar is not actually a histamine high food group, but it spikes the histamine, so it can accelerate your histamine levels that you might already have in the body. So say it's an attributor to your histamine. Number 3 is things like yogurt. It goes back to the kombucha stuff. Sort of all that fermented dairy is a real no-no. Aged cheese is the worst. So think of your Parmesan and your Stiltons and things like that. They're really bad. They're really high histamine contributors. If you want to have dairy and you're okay with dairy, stick to sort of things like cottage cheese or mozzarella or feta cheese. Like, we have quite a bit of sheep's cheese in the household. I love a little bit of feta. I'm okay with a little bit of feta between you and me. So number 4 is dry fruit. Now, I love dry fruit. It's so sad, but yeah, dry fruit really, really high in histamine, because it's something that's aged over time. So if you think about anything that's aged or processed, then you've got to avoid that, which then swiftly leads me on to number 5, which is processed meats. So your ham, your salami, your chorizo, all of that, your pastrami, all of that is that aged processed meats, very high in histamine. Number 6, I just want to get it out the way, is gluten. I'm afraid, the white flour, it's just always avoid gluten, in my opinion. It's just so bad for the gut. It can cause leaky gut. And then at the same time, it is a high histamine as well. So you really want to go for, your more natural grains. When I do a bread recipe on my channel, so go ahead and check that out here if you're really interested and you really love your bread. Rice pasta, you can find that in your organic food stores, but avoid at all costs corn, because I'm going to talk about it later. Well, I've given it away now, so we can just include it. Gluten and corn. No corn either. Corn is another really high histamine food. It's a very overprocessed food. It does nothing for your gut, and it's very high in histamine too. So avoid any corn flour products. So number 7 is shellfish. And pretty much all shellfish, forget it, I'm sorry. That's your mussels, that's your prawns, that's your clams, that's your lobster, that's your langoustine. It's all really high in histamine, and I don't know why, but it just is. So moving on to number 8, which we're going to start our fruit and vegetables off. I'm going to start off with nightshades, you guys. That's your red peppers, yellow peppers, your green peppers, your eggplant, your tomatoes. Very high in histamine. I'm sorry. Scrap them. I do have a great recipe called Nomato sauce on my Instagram, so go ahead and check out my Instagram. I put it up there, I think like a month ago, and it's literally the best tomato sauce replacer that you can have, because if you are somebody who is constantly living off pasta and tomato sauce, first of all, you need to learn a few other recipes, but second of all, if that is kind of like a basic go-to that you like to do when you're feeling tired or you just got home from work or something, the Nomato sauce on my Instagram, go ahead and check it out. I'll also put it down here in the link below to my Instagram account, so you can go ahead and check that out. But it's a brilliant, brilliant sauce that you can make up at home. Every Sunday, I do my Sunday meal prep, and I bake my bread and I do my sauces, and I'll do a few puddings and that sort of thing to put in the freezer, because I can put them in the freezer. I like to do a few things so that I'm prepped and ready for the week, so that I can just have my go-to meals when I get back from work and the kids have come home from school, and I'm just all ready, set, go. So number 9 is, pineapples, tropical fruit. It's a good reminder. It looks really good on the wall and I'm really happy for it, but I never eat it. And the same goes for papayas, for kiwis, for bananas. Think of them as like, anything that's kind of tropical that you can't grow in the country that you're living in. If you guys are watching and you live in Barbados, then sorry, I'm completely off track here. But yeah, generally tropical fruit is really high in histamine. I think kiwis is probably the highest histamine food type in the fruit and vegetable world. So yeah, I avoid that at all costs. which brings me on to number 10, which is citrus fruits. I think lime is like okay, you know, have a little bit of lime, but your grapefruit, your oranges, your lemons, really gotta like hammer down on those. You've really got to like try and get rid of them all together. If you're somebody who likes your OJ in the morning, opt for something else, you know. Don't have to have OJ. Apple juice is really good. Celery juice is so good for you guys. If you haven't seen my celery juice video, then please go ahead and check it out. I think the one thing that I would say about celery juice is that it can just do so many wonders for your skin. And for me, typically, I think if you guys follow me on Instagram and did my stories there, that I had COVID earlier at the beginning of this year, and it really took me a long time for my skin to come right, between 4 to 6 weeks. I sort of recovered, and then I dipped again, and then I recovered, and then I dipped again, because when I was coming into recovery and my skin was recovering, I really needed to support it with the right nutrients, and instead I was sort of just eating any old thing as for comfort food, because I just wasn't really feeling on top of things. But once I went back to my celery juice, you know, like now, things are really coming together now for my skin. I don't have such bad issues of itching, but yeah, I went through a bit of a bad time, but the celery juice saves the day every time for me. This one really breaks my heart because I absolutely love avocado, and it is really high in histamine. So number 11 is no avocados. Like I said previously in this video, if you want to reintroduce these things and your itch is under control and you're really finding that your skin is healing and you can really see the light at the end of the tunnel with your healing, then the odd avocado is really not going to spike too much, but just limit it to maybe one a week or one every 2 weeks. And then, you know, you can, like I said, you can slowly start introducing some of these foods. So on the avocado note, I wanted to add spinach as well. Spinach is super high in histamine. And on the tropical fruits, I forgot to include mango, so don't forget mango as well. So just, that's how I like to group them, instead of like in those groups. So tropical fruits together, you know, citrus together, you know, green fruit vegetables together. And that's the way I kind of keep it in my mind. And what I'll do is I'll put down below like a link, and it's kind of like a whole poster full of high histamine fruit and vegetables and foods, just so that you can always remember what they are. So number 12 is caffeine, which includes coffee and chocolate, I'm afraid, you guys, which I'll come on to in a minute. Coffee wise, it's so ridiculous. In this house, we have 3 coffee machines. It's so embarrassing. 1, 2, and then we have a third one over there. So coffee wise, I have, this is my machine, the white one here, there, because it's an espresso, well, it's an proper espresso machine, and it takes this bio Aqua Deca by Malonga, and this is like the only coffee that I basically drink, because I've got to be real careful with coffee because I can spike real easy. The reason why I have this coffee is because a lot of decaf coffees are decaffeinated with chemicals, and this one is pretty much one of the only few on the market that is decaffeinated with water. So it's kind of like a very safe bio-organic brand, and then with the decaf it's like no solvents, no nasties, no chemicals, nothing to decaffeinate it, which is brilliant. And it's fair trade, so I really love this. And because they are so eco-friendly, they only either sell them, you know, in the grounded coffee grinds or in these like sort of like tea bags, but I don't have that machine, so I just have this one instead. So another really good cacao replacer or chocolate replacer is this carob powder, and this carob powder is just brilliant because it's very similar to cacao, but it's carob, so it actually comes from another plant, and it's really similar to the taste of chocolate. And I like to put this in. If I wanted to have a hot chocolate in the evening, I would do a hot rice milk, and then I would add this powder. If I wanted to do like a chocolate shake or something, or smoothie, then I would add like my oats and blend it up in my bullet, and then add some of this. And if you want to go ahead and check out my latest Instagram reel that I did, and that was all about making the pancakes, that you could make chocolate pancakes with this if you wanted to, which is really a really good idea actually. I might do that tomorrow. If If you guys got some value out of this video, please don't forget to give me a thumbs up for this video. Consider subscribing and joining my community so you don't miss out on any of my next up and coming videos. Go ahead and check out this video here as well about all the brilliant foods you can eat and incorporate into your diet. So many people say, oh, but high histamine diet, low histamine diet, it's so difficult to follow because there's so many foods that you can't eat. But go ahead and check out this video over here where I include a lot of foods that are really like high in things like polyphenols, which is a brilliant anti-histamine and really great anti-inflammatory food type. And until then, I'll see you in the next one. Bye for now.